All right, well, today I'm down here just fletching a few arrows and got thinking about all the different ways to do it and the reasons you can fletch arrows in different ways, and thought I'd take a minute to talk about those. One thing that's kind of become really popular of late is these short, like blazer style vanes, the 2-inch vanes that are a little more rigid. I think a lot of that stuff kind of came up because you started seeing people shooting for speed, and those smaller veins like that are going to be more effective in a speed application, and therefore probably in a mechanical broadhead situation if that's what you're going to be shooting. However, if you're shooting a whisker biscuit, you might want to go with something a little longer, like a 2.5 or a 3-inch vane, something that's going to be a little more gradual as it comes off the string, and all that friction on the whisker biscuit itself, it's not so abrupt as it passes through there as a shorter vane would be. And I mean, I think in my opinion, you see a lot more guys shooting these longer vanes, especially when they're shooting a fixed blade broadhead. Specifically for the fact of being able to put such a severe offset or helical into those vanes and really stabilize that arrow a lot faster off the rest when you're trying to support that larger broadhead on the end. And with that, one thing you can do if you are shooting a fixed blade is go ahead and heat up your insert and rotate your insert to where the blade on your broadhead is in the same plane on the arrow as your vane. Now, in doing that, you never want to put direct heat on the shaft, even if it's an aluminum like the FMJ, but definitely don't ever put flame directly to the carbon. You want to go ahead and just put it on the broadhead or even on a practice tip. You make a little mark to where the broadhead would line up, put your practice tip in there, heat it up, and then spin it if you're using an epoxy adhesive in there on that. Speaking of inserts, one thing you might want to do, those micro diameter arrows, a lot of guys are shooting outserts to give a little more front of center, but you can also put brass inserts if you are shooting like an FMJ or a gold tip or a standard shaft arrow. But specifically back to the fletchings, I got my jig set up. I'm going to go ahead and fletch one just for the purpose of demonstration, but I'm shooting the longer vanes just because I was shooting fixed blade broadheads this year. Again, just stabilize them right off the string as fast as possible. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and just fletch one up on this 5mm FMJ. No matter what style you're using, you want to go ahead and make sure that you know exactly how far the top of the fletching is going to sit from the knocking point. Either on the knocking point, like with a Bitzenberger like this, you're going to leave the knock on when you fletch the arrow, but with this boning, you're going to take the knock off fletching the arrow. There's different settings on the Bitzenberger to adjust that. With this boning, there's not so much of an adjustment, but there are different size posts that you put in the middle here depending on the diameter of your arrow. They go all the way from the micro diameters, again, into this 5mm, all the way up to those bigger target arrows. So really versatile unit here, and same with any of them really. They're pretty versatile all across the board. But when you're installing these things, you just want to make sure the fletching sits naturally at the bottom, in this case of the arm of the jig. With the Bitzenberger, again, just setting it in the clamp, you can make an adjustment to wherever it's going to fall based on how far off the end of the shaft you want it to be. With that said, you need to make sure you have an oil-free surface on the shaft using isopropyl alcohol or a nail polish remover, some kind of acetone. And I like to use a priming pen just to make sure I get better adhesion. You want to run that priming pen right down the back side of the fletching. This stuff evaporates pretty quick, so don't be afraid to make sure you cover it. And from there, you want to apply your glue. Your glue is just as important to the fletching process as the style of fletching you're about to do. Mainly because, like with this Fletch Tight from Boning, this is a 5-minute set time but a 48-hour cure time, and this is the kind of glue you want to use on your aluminum shafts like the FMJs. But every manufacturer makes one specifically for a different application, carbon or aluminum. Again, there's no wrong way to do it as long as you buy the right stuff for the products you have. So with your glue, you want to use it kind of sparingly, but enough to make sure you cover. the back of the vane. In this case, less is usually more. It's better to underdo it than to overdo it, because with the pressure that's going to be applied, the glue is going to spread out on the back of the vane, and you're going to be just fine. From here, with this particular jig, you want to go ahead and fold the arms up, take the clamp over the top of the arrow until it's snug there, hit the release on the bottom, allowing the arms to make contact with the shaft and applying the glue and the fletching directly to the shaft. These all work the same whether you are applying the vane straight to the shaft or if you're going to put a wrap on them. Again, at that point, if you're using an aluminum arrow and you wrap it, you don't need to use the aluminum specific adhesive. You can use the other adhesives like the super glues or the epoxies and be just fine. With the Bitzenberger, you're only doing one vane at a time as opposed to this where you have three. But another big benefit to doing your own arrows is knowing that they're all done exactly the same. You're at the mercy of the factory. Not that that's wrong, but this just gives you that peace of mind that can sometimes give you the extra confidence you're looking for, whether you're a target shooter, 3D shooter, or even in a hunting scenario. But just something to do to help pass the time and know that you've had a little more hands-on experience with your equipment. So if this is something you've been thinking about doing, don't be afraid to do some research, find what's right for you and what equipment you have, and get out there and give it a try. Anything you do can be undone if you happen to screw it up. You know, a good razor blade scrape or again some acetone and you're back to square one. So if you've been thinking about it, go out there and give it a try.